Well, Russia says air defence systems shot down a number of drones flying towards Moscow this morning. Reports of drone attacks have emerged from across southern Russia and occupied parts of Ukraine. Moscow's airports were briefly closed this morning as the bridge between Russia and Crimea. Well, President Putin says Ukraine is trying to sabotage the Russian election. And joining me in the studio now this afternoon is our military analyst, Sean Bell, to talk us through all of this. So let's start with those drone strikes, Sean. They are reports of Ukrainian attacks on Russia overnight.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's no coincidence that the Ukrainians have stepped up attacks on Russia during the course of the President Putin's election at all. Russian MOD claims they've shot down 35 drones. That included 5 that were apparently up targeting near the Moscow area in the north there. Russia also accused Ukraine of delivering a bomb on the top of a polling station in Zaporizhia down there. And there's also Ukrainian shellings continued at Belgorod, which is just on the Russian side of the border, very close to Ukraine. There's also reports of the Ukrainian security service have been attacking 3 oil refineries. Well, this is actually the attack of Belgorod at the moment, but 3 oil refineries in the region of Samara region, which is a little bit further to the east and north of Crimea. Now, that is significant because it's about 10% of the oil that's refined by Russia is refined at that facility. But apart from that attack, most of these attacks, whilst they look pretty devastating, actually are not going to change the course of the war. But almost certainly the reason Ukraine's doing it is to remind Russia that Russia is in a war with Ukraine, and this is Putin's war.
Right, OK. Moving on to actually what's involving the UK, there are reports that Defence Secretary Grant Shapps had to cancel a trip to Odessa last month, I believe. What more can you tell us about that?
Yes, an interesting story has just come to light in the last couple of days, but we're seeing Grant Shapps meet President Zelensky here. But about 10 days ago, Grant Shapps and the Chief of the Defence Staff, Admiral Radakin, which are seen here, travelled from Poland across to Kiev, and they were meant to, the next day, go on a visit to Odessa. The trouble is that the Kremlin apparently found out about this visit, so intelligence suggested, therefore they cancelled the trip to Odessa for fear that the Defence Secretary would be targeted. Now, no great surprise of this, although by all accounts Grant Shapps was a bit annoyed that he might have been targeted. But the harsh reality is the UK is providing a lot of support to Ukraine, so that probably makes it a legitimate target. What I think is the subtext to this, which is most interesting, though, is that the UK is providing lots of military advice to Ukraine. Why is that? Surely Ukraine know how to fight. Well, part of it is because weapons like this Patriot system, high-tech weapons that the West has provided, allow you to fight in a different way. It's a different doctrine. It's not the war of attrition, which Ukraine will be used to. And therefore, there will be lots of sitting down, floating ideas, brainstorming session. It's still up to Ukraine what they do, but they will have been advised. The interesting thing, though, about this, which we can zoom out to the map, is one of the structures that we're hearing about, though, is actually a change of grand strategy, because it does appear that the Ukrainians have been advised to try to select into a more defensive strategy up in the Donbass, where the Russians are pushing forward, allow them to suffer a high rate of casualties in the winter, with the Ukrainians trying to mount more targeting on Crimea. Now, it seems bizarre because militarily, Ukrainians would struggle to take Crimea. But the key is, with the Black Sea Fleet out of the way now, if they were able to threaten Crimea, particularly the port of Sevastopol, then that would mean potentially Putin, because that's a crown jewel for Russia, right, potentially that would drag President Putin to the negotiating table. Seems a long way off at the moment, but that seems to be the core of that story.
OK, interesting. Thanks for explaining all of that, Sean Bell. Thank you.